I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. We are here to discuss our low EOC test scores. We just got our test scores back from this past year, and they had decreased from last year's score. Does anybody have any ideas of what maybe could have caused that decrease? It seems we have the same teachers teaching the same classes, and this is the first year that we've really seen our test scores decrease.
Reading ability, definitely, and just comprehending the material in general, across all disciplines.
Okay. What about you?
I mean, my scores were consistent, but they're always consistently low. Just because
that's what we want to avoid.
Right. Just it's because of students that I have. So I do think that there needs to be some changes made. I think if we work on reading across the board, then that will help in all subject area scores.
So you both brought up reading. Have you seen that something that was this a 1 year off thing, that this the first year kids have had decrease, or has it been progressively getting worse?
No, I think it's always been an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So we maybe need to look at some reading programs that we could maybe do to increase the reading comprehension. Does anybody have any ideas of any programs or how we could go about doing that?
Right, a few years ago, I learned about Read 180. It's a pretty cool program. It combines like there's a computer aspect where the students work individually on the computers, but then there's also small groups. So it's kind of like elementary when they have centers. There's a whole group activity where they work on like a skill, and then they practice that skill different ways in all of the centers. And that might be something that could be effective with everybody. It's expensive.
It's expensive, but I think somebody was talking about this. I think a drawback we might have with that too is it's a 50-minute program, I believe.
Right.
And we only have class for 47 minutes. We might need, if that's the way we want to go, to investigate if cutting the time short would make a difference.
I think that it probably might be effective if we tried to take her strategy and do it alternating instead of taking the whole class to do the whole 50 minutes and move on. Because this one that I looked at, PALS, P-A-L-S, reading, it suggests that in high school you implement it 5 times every 2 weeks for 35 minutes. And like you said, because our classes are so short, I think if we tried to implement it with our school curriculum and do it more as a bell ringer activity, it might work better. Because it asks the students to read to each other, read a passage, and then the next one will read it back, and then practice their comprehension in that way.
Oh.
And that one would be good because you'd still be able to work on your standards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know, expanding on that, in science, a big push, and I guess in all subjects, is to reading nonfiction text. And that's something that you still need to be able to do, and maybe you can find that nonfiction text which ties into your standards of what you want to teach that day.
Another thing that I've used before is SRA Online. So I don't know if you guys, when you were in elementary school, used those SRA, like the colors, where everybody wanted to be like blue. You know what I'm talking about? So they have that same thing online, and you assign them their level based on a test that they take at the beginning, and then they work independently on their level. And I believe it was every 2 weeks, they had to take another test to see if they had moved up a level. And that was effective for my kids because they wanted to be, I think it was yellow actually, it was the highest. But they wanted to be that different color.
Okay. The program I've looked at is the strategy intervention model. Is really trying to get the students to their metacognitive reading strategies, especially paraphrasing. I think that's a big thing when you want to go read nonfiction text, you want to go in science field, you have to write research papers like that, you have to paraphrase a whole lot of it. I've seen that something in the research papers we've written. Paraphrasing is not something, citing is not something that's strong. But maybe if they could work on the paraphrasing with that, it would help in some other reading things.
I agree.
Another one, I think we talked about is, we're at the secondary level. It's more of, I think, of an elementary school and middle school program as accelerated reader, AR. Students will, have books that are assigned point values, and then, it assigns you an AR goal, which you need to have for each quarter, really, and, students have to read to get that. And I know at our elementary and middle school, they have AR parties where you can go in the AR store and you can buy things. people donate items with shirts, food. I remember when I was in school, we had a pizza party. If we all in our class met our accelerated reader goal.
I think if they decide to do that, if we decide to do that, we definitely need to probably go back to doing something like SSR, sustained silent reading, so that they have time to read those books in order to take the test. Because I'm afraid that if we left it on them to read them at home independently, that might not get accomplished.
Yeah, SSR has been something that we've done here at the high school intermittently, probably the past 20 years. We went through periods where we're going to read 25 minutes twice a week, and it overrides class instructional time. Everybody reads, whether it is the math teacher, math teachers and the math students have to read, PE, art, band, everyone has to read. I think a big drawback to that was you're cutting out instructional time.
Right.
I think it's something that we could definitely look at, especially, next year we're going to go to have an RTI time, 30 minutes in the day. Maybe use that once, twice a week so saying, hey, here's going to be sustained silent reading, and everyone has to do it.
I think that would be great, especially if we could start assigning some sort of, at least to the SSR, if it's in that RTI time and they have other work to do, that's fine. But then if they actually do go forth and they do read on their own, maybe it would benefit us to reward them slightly in some way. Maybe not, but it's nice to have an incentive sometimes for students who don't think of themselves very highly in a reading field. They might need some encouragement.
Sure.
There was, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, that something that helped my students was when I read the end of course exams to them. Would it be possible to do that? What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple of years ago, I think we had that push in the classroom to read the EOC to them, just like you talked about, and I think that we found, maybe because we didn't do it all year, and it's that one-off thing, we read them to, and test scores actually went down in those groups, and those students had very low reading levels, and it didn't really seem to increase scoring on the EOC. I don't know, maybe if we would do that to all the tests instead of that, hey, 2 weeks before, we're going to read you the test, and here's how it's going to be.
They were used to it.
Yes.
Something that they did all the time. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Because that's what that's what we do. I read the tests, almost all their tests to them. So my kids are just more.
And I think no matter what you talk about, whether it be English, which that's been some of our lowest test scores, government, biology, even math. Did you see math, reading their test in math help them too? I mean.
To an extent, there's a good number of the math EOC questions that are like word problems and not just solve for X or whatever. So those were difficult. But one thing that I noticed with the math EOC is the kids not understanding the words. So for example, if it didn't say solve, if it said another word that meant the same thing as solve, that would catch them up because they didn't have that vocabulary that they needed.
That actually segues nicely into the other strategy that I was looking at. It's called benchmark detectives.
Mm-hmm.
It's geared more towards elementary students, and it has been noted that there was limited effectiveness for high school and middle school, but I think it might be really effective for our students because of their low reading levels. Like, yes, they're in high school, but do they read at a high school level?
No.
Absolutely not. So.
No.
Well, not to interrupt there, but
No,
I think
go ahead.
that's something that we've looked at. We give the STAR test 3 times a year, and I think like 10% of our freshmen this year read at a high school level, which is at their grade level, and you see that those kids that read, or this past year read at the that read at the high level, don't read at the freshman level. They either read at the top end of the STAR test,
Right.
and so it kind of skews the data in a way that the number of kids who actually read at just a 9th grade level.
Right. It's either like 12.9
Yes.
or below grade level.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The benchmark detectives actually helps them, it's more of like a context clues sort of thing, wherein they use the words that are around it to try to decode what they don't know. And chunking it into different sections, so you focus on this section right here, circle the words that you don't know. Now read through it and see, what does this word mean, what does this word mean, how does the word in the middle tie them together?
Right.
And I think it could be, I mean, it's really pretty flexible across disciplines, and I think especially for government and for English, since it is so reading heavy, that it might be helpful to start implementing that in
Okay,
class.
yeah, okay. So, just to conclude, we have these 6 programs we've talked about. Maybe if you could send out a survey to administrators in the district to see what they think be most effective. And then if you, beginning of the year, maybe you could talk with the students and see where we wanna go, because we wanna have this ready before school starts, but just to see, what their feedback is once we start with our program. We'll meet again to discuss, your results from your survey and what direction we wanna go next year.
Okay.
Thank you all.